Abhijnjana Shakuntalam, or the Story of the Lost Ring, a drama by Kalidasa. A long time ago, there was a powerful ruler of the Lunar dynasty by the name of Dushyanta. He ruled the kingdom of Hastinapur as its king. Once he went out hunting, and while he was chasing after a deer, he came close to the hermitage of the sage Kanwa, who was an eminent among the hermits. When the king reached there, the hermits asked him not to kill the deer, so he let it go. The king was thirsty, and on his search to find some water, he noticed some of the hermitage maidens tending to their favorite plants by giving them water. He was welcomed by one of them, a young lady by the name of Shakuntala, who was both wonderfully beautiful and timid. She was the foster child of the hermit Kanwa and the biological daughter of the celestial nymph Menaka, and whose father was the revered scholar Vishwamitra. She is overcome with feelings of love at first sight of the king, but she gets confused by the unexpected change in her emotions and feelings. The king also falls in love with Shakuntala at first sight, yet it is not a fleeting love, but it is of such profound character. As he is taken aback by her stunning beauty, he exclaims, "Her lip is rosy like an opening bud, her graceful arms resemble tender shoots, as attractive as the bloom upon the tree. The glow of youth is spread on all her limbs." After taking the opportunity to speak to her, he quickly came to the conclusion that it would be impossible for him to go back to his palace, leaving this beauty behind. But he returns reluctantly from the hermitage. His body advances forwards while his head flies backwards like a silken flag being carried against the wind. He looks for opportunities that will allow him to see her. Back at his palace, the memory of her torments him at all hours of the day and night. He is unable to relax or enjoy anything, not even his favorite hobby, which is playing sports. However, the king's jester, friend, and constant companion, Matavya, helps to relieve some of the boredom and anxiety that the king experiences. The chance that the king has been looking for has finally presented itself. The hermits dispatch an embassy to the king, requesting that he travel to the hermitage to watch over the sacrifices they are performing. Taravaga, a messenger sent by the queen mother, arrived as he was making preparations for his departure to the hermitage. The queen mother requested him to be present in the city of Hastinapur. At first, he is at a loss to figure out how to get himself out of this difficult situation. Nevertheless, a thought occurs to him and he acts on it. As a stand in for himself, he sent the jester to the city to fulfill his mother's request. Now that he has some free time at his disposal, he decides to go in search of the love struck Shakuntala. She is wilting because of her feelings for the king, and she is seen resting on a bed of flowers inside an arbor. He goes to the hermitage, listens in on her talk with her two companions, then presents himself and makes a proposal of marriage to her. The lovers are brought together once more in this manner. In order to determine whether or not there are any obstacles to the two of them getting married, he inquires about her parents. In response, Shakuntala instructs her companion, Priyamvada, to provide the king with a narrative of her birth in order to appease the curiosity of the king. After hearing the story of her birth, the king requests that his companion approach Shakuntala for her permission to marry him in the customary manner known as Gandharva. Shakuntala makes a request to the king to postpone their wedding until her foster father, Kanwa, who was out on a pilgrimage at the time, returns and gives his permission. However, due to the king's increasing persistence, she finally agrees to his demand. They will wed in accordance with the Gandharva form, and it is expected that one of their offspring will one day sit atop the throne of Hastinapur. As a sign of acknowledgement, her master, the king, gives her a wedding ring to wear. She gladly accepts it. After this, the monarch departs, promising that his ministers and troops will shortly be dispatched to accompany Shakuntala as his queen to his capital city. When Kanwa returns to the hermitage, he is made conscious by his spiritual powers of what has transpired during his absence, and he congratulates Shakuntala on having selected a husband who is worthy of her in every way. The following day, while Shakuntala is intensely preoccupied with thoughts of her absent lord, the renowned and choleric sage Durvasa arrives and demands the rights of hospitality. Due to the fact that Shakuntala is preoccupied with other things at the time, she does not welcome him with the appropriate politeness. The ascetic then utters a curse which states that the individual whose memory it was that caused her to forget her responsibilities towards guests will abandon her. Shakuntala does not hear it, but Priyambada does, and she uses entreaties to alleviate the fury of the sage. The sage, having been appeased, then ordains that the curse will end at the sight of some symbol of recognition. Shakuntala is pregnant, and in the seventh month of her pregnancy, her foster father sends her to Hastinapur along with her sister Gautami, as well as his two disciples Sarangarva and Saradvada. Shakuntala prepares to leave the sacred grove in which she was raised, together with the flowers, gazelles, and friends she has known her entire life. An elderly hermit of the grove shares his emotions about the impending departure of Shakuntala in the following manner. My heart is touched with sadness at the thought Shakuntala must go today. My throat is choked with the flow of tears repressed. My sight is dimmed with pensiveness. But if the grief of an old forest hermit is so great, how keen must be the pang a father feels when freshly parted from a cherished child. After that, he asked the trees to bid her a respectful farewell before she leaves. They respond with the enchanting song of the kokila. Subsequently, the following messages of affection are spoken aloud by voices in the air. May the breeze be soft and comforting, caressing your cheek. May lakes all sparkling with lily cups delight your eyes. May shady trees cool the sun's heat. May the dust beneath your feet be the pollen of lotuses. May your journey be auspicious. While Shakuntala and her traveling companions were taking a refreshing dip in the Prachi Saraswati river, an act of carelessness on Shakuntala's part caused her to accidentally drop the ring of recognition into the water. At the time, she was oblivious to the loss of the ring. After a long journey, they reach Hastinapur, where they immediately start communicating with the king. The king orders his family priest, Somaratha, to inquire them about the reason behind their arrival and report back to him. Following this, the priest greets them at the gate, is aware of the reasons for their visit, and shares this information with the king. The curse of Durvasa has the anticipated effect. The king is unable to remember her and denies Shakuntala. She and her colleagues are taken before the king at the priest's request, and the king questions them. The king makes his disapproval of Shakuntala public. Shakuntala tries to present the wedding ring that was given to her by her husband as a last desperate effort. But when she learns that the ring has been lost, she gives up any hope of finding it. Sarangarva raises a strong protest against the behavior of the king and urges the king to acknowledge Shakuntala's right to the throne as his legal wife. Despite the fact that Shakuntala is mild mannered and shy, she is not afraid to express her moral outrage towards the king. The disciples left, proclaiming that the king would need to have a change of mind about it. Shakuntala becomes unconscious and collapses to the ground. She eventually regains consciousness, at which point the priest approaches the monarch with a request to let her remain in the king's palace until the delivery of her child. After the king gives his approval, Menaka comes in her radiant form just as Shakuntala is following the priest. She grabs a hold of her daughter and then departs, taking Shakuntala with her to a celestial refuge. Everyone who is currently present there is both shocked and terrified. After this unfortunate event, one day, while the king is out on inspection, a certain fisherman is dragged along by constables before the king. He is charged with the theft of the royal signet ring, which he professes to have found inside a fish. The king, however, causes the poor accused to be set free and rewards him handsomely for his fine. Upon beholding the ring, now memories of his past sweetheart are flooding back to him. His intense and ardent love for Shakuntala sweeps over him with a force that is doubled and redoubled each time. Indulging in sadness over his rejection of Shakuntala, the king passes through 3 long years. At the end of this period, Mathali, Indra's charioteer, appears to the king and asks for his assistance in destroying the demons. The king agrees to help. He takes Indra's vehicle with him on his journey across the air. The hermitage of Maricha is where he decides to rest after returning from the kingdom of Indra. When he arrives here, he observes a little kid attacking a lion cub. After taking his hand, he exclaimed, "If now the touch of but a stranger's child thus sends a thrill of joy through all my limbs, what emotions must be awakened in the soul of that blessed father from whose loins he sprang." He did not know that the boy was his own son at the time. The king is able to deduce from the youngster's boastful statements that the boy is a descendant of the race of Puru. The love that he has for him is unending and boundless. There is a set of circumstantial evidence that suggests the youngster in question is his son. The amulet that the boy is wearing can be used to determine his parents. However, while he is in a state of uncertainty regarding the paternity of the uncooperative boy, he comes into contact with the intelligent Maricha, who reveals him everything. The boy's name is Sarvadamana, but he will later become known as Bharata. Bharata is claimed to have been the most famous king of the Lunar dynasty. It is said that his power extended over a significant portion of India. It is because of Bharata that India is still referred to as Bharatam or Bharatavarsha. the nation or realm of Bharata. Soon after that, he finds and acknowledges Shakuntala, and they are finally and joyfully reunited with one another.